So I'm gonna try some backwards engineering here.
It works. Hey, welcome back, folks. I'm Handy Matt, and this is my channel, and I do a lot of crazy stuff here, and that's what's happening today. So a few days ago, this cooler, I set it up in my truck where it's kind of permanently mounted and it doesn't slide around, and I got a place to put lumber or whatever. I like having the cooler in my truck because when I go out and do handyman work, I always got ice water, and it's good, especially when it's hot. And then the gears in my head, which never stopped spinning, started spinning even faster, and I realized that down here, here's the drain. Now I set this thing up so I could the mount I put in my truck, so I could easily drain the water out. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, why am I doing that once a day, draining the water out, adding more ice? I like to have water in my cooler. A few inches of it at least. That way there's a big slushy of ice and water in there, and the water bottles are swimming around in it, and they're all perfectly immersed in it, and they're all in full contact with nice ice cold water. And I decided that it needs an overflow where it automatically overflows, and it always keeps about, my measurement right now is about 6 inches of water in there at all times, and it just constantly overflows as the ice melts. And once a day I just add a bag of ice, it's good to go. So I'm putting overflow on it. So I got some things figured out here. I got a piece of PVC here. This is 3/4 inch. Then I got a couple of adapters. They are 1 inch to 3/4, and I modified them so that I can use them as like kind of flanges, bulkhead flanges, right? So basically what I'm going to do, this pipe is a little bit long right now. I'm going to shorten it up, but I'm going to put them together like this, right? And the wall of the cooler is going to be right here. This will be a lot shorter. Then I got this little adapter here that goes to, it's like almost like a shark bite fitting, but this will screw in here. And where's the other tubing? And I got this 1/2 inch tubing that's left over from a job I did where I installed a water softener, and this will go right into here, and then this tubing will lead from the side of my cooler here down to the drain that's in the corner of my truck bed. I think it's gonna work great. So I'm gonna start getting things set up so I can get this figured out and get it all installed. So I can't do this with regular, regular PVC cement, because it's got like a work time of like literally 2 seconds. So I'm gonna set this up to where I can use some 5-minute JB Weld clear weld epoxy. That way I got some time to work things, and it will it'll set up really nice and make it nice and watertight. Well, that way it leaks out where I want it to leak instead of leaking out somewhere else. So the problem I got to figure out right now, which I already got the solution for, is these little, I'm calling these bulkhead fittings here. They're a little bit tight, but they work great for PVC cement. So I need it to be a little bit looser so I have some time to work with the epoxy, right? So I'm going to put this on the lathe, and I'm going to use some sandpaper to reduce the diameter a little bit. And then this little fitting here, this little friction shark bite fitting, whatever you want to call it, it'll go in here, and it actually screws in pretty nicely. So all I got to do is put some epoxy on those threads, screw it in there, and it'll be nice and watertight where I want it watertight, and the liquid will come out right there. So I'm going to head over to the lathe first, and I'm going to get this reduced in diameter, and Then we'll go from there, drilling holes in the side of the cooler and getting it all set up. See y'all at the lathe. I don't have all the right tooling for this lathe yet, so I'll just use this ratchet to get this 3-jaw chuck down to the right size. And time to reduce the diameter with just some 80 grit sandpaper. This might take a little while. Getting there. Definitely a lot looser. I want it looser than that. I'm going to try it flat. Use a great big rasp and see what happens. Didn't really make much progress. Let's try a different rasp. Got a couple of rasps here. Let's see. Just trying to make things work because the tooling that was supposed to come with this lathe didn't come with it. Got kind of mixed up with a bunch of other pile of stuff, and well, I just got to deal with what I got. see if we're getting somewhere now. Oh, definitely. Look at that. We are there, folks. That's what I need. Loose enough to where I can, it's sloppy enough to where I can work with the epoxy and not have it set up too quickly. Perfect. All right, let's get it out of here. Okay. Got all my parts and pieces here ready to go. I gotta put a hole right here. I don't have a hole saw or a Forstner bit that's the right size, so I chose one that is a tiny bit smaller, and then I'll use this tool right here to kind of widen it up a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and drill a hole right through there right now. Hopefully I got my measurements correct. Just a standard Forstner bit. Yep. That's just some typical closed cell styrofoam in there. Now, this piece right here is not going to fit in there at all, so I'm going to start opening it up a little bit. See how far I got to go. Just like that, I got it. I'll get the inside. I'm not going to try to put the camera in the cooler, folks. You just have to trust me. I'm doing it like I did the other one. Not as pretty as the outside one, but it's working. Let's see. This is the one for the inside. I modified it so it'll fit in that corner. A little bit more there. Good to go on the inside. Now I got styrofoam everywhere, so I'm gonna go dump this in the trash. Alright, so here's the idea. This stuff went everywhere. Alright, so the idea I got in my head right now is I'm going to go ahead and glue the inside part together with some epoxy and get that set. And then I'm going to measure And I'm going to cut this to length. And it's okay if this one sticks a little bit further out. The outside doesn't matter because this part here is also going to stick out. So I'm going to mix up some epoxy here. This is just some standard regular epoxy made by JB Weld. It's 50-50, so 1 part each. I don't need a whole lot for this little application. So if you actually screw up on this stuff, if you want it to basically cure up slower, put a tiny bit more resin. If you want it to basically cure up faster, put a tiny bit more hardener. But try to stay as close to the 50-50 mark as you can, because that's what it's designed to hold. Now I'm not trying to build the Eiffel Tower here, so I don't need to be super strong. I just need it to not leak. And basically right here, I don't want water to go inside the 2 walls of the cooler and infiltrate that foam. Even though it's closed cell foam, I don't want it to infiltrate that and cause problems down the road. So we'll just mix up this epoxy here really good. Get some a little bit on the end of this, on this chopstick here, and I'm going to put a little bit. You see what I'm doing right here? Just a little bit on the inside of here, of this particular part of the setup. Then put a whole bunch right around here. I'm not a genius, but solving problems like this keeps me awake at night sometimes. And I think I came up with a pretty good solution. Alright, so I'm going to marry these 2 pieces together. Just like this. All right, and this is the part that's going to live on the inside of the cooler, okay? And the discharge will be on this side. So I need to let this sit up for about 10 minutes. So you guys need to go read a book or something for the next 2 seconds. Be right back. Okay, epoxy is set up really good. Now it's time to figure out where to cut this small pipe off at. A little further. Now let's get rid of that. We're going to go ahead and cut it off. Now this thing's not going to be perfectly square. It's going to be pretty close. Let's go ahead and make a mark right about there. And we'll come over here to the vise. And I'll just use a hacksaw to get it off. we need there. Get my deburring tool out here and just clean it up. Now I'm going to show you a trick. You can deburr the outside here, but I see a lot of people they try to go like this. No, don't do it that way. Put the deburring tool like this, at that angle, and then just slowly creep your way around. And get all those nasty little burrs off of there. All right. See how we're looking. Yeah, it's kind of rounded, so there's a bit of a gap right there, but I'm going to fill that up with epoxy. Alright, so the next step is to actually epoxy these into there and just kind of sandwich it all together. And then I'll come back after about 10 minutes of that setting up and I'll screw this one in with some epoxy on the threads. And we'll be pretty close to being done, with the exception of a couple of things I'm going to do, which involve trying to make this a little bit more reflective to the sun. That involves some chrome paint. But it's late night tonight, so there'll be an intermission. When I get to that point, intermission, you know, about 2 seconds, and then I'll get it painted up tomorrow and get it installed. So I'm going to mix up a pretty decent amount here. That looks about right. It's about 50-50, thereabouts. Let's get this mixture all incorporated and start putting this thing together. Yeah, I'm using the epoxy because I got some working time. I can fool around a little bit getting this thing set in there. If I was using that PVC cement, yeah, 2 seconds at best. So epoxy for the win today. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is this part that goes on the inside, right here, I'm going to liberally coat the outside of that flange with epoxy and shove it in there. And then we'll get the one on the outside in. And I'm going to let that completely set up with this on there. And then I'll come back and I'll put more epoxy around here and more on the inside. Get it good and sealed up. So I'll use my thumb. That's the right size. Should be enough. Get it shoved in there. Okay, that went pretty smooth. Now we need to put some epoxy around the outside here. Oop, I'm dripping. Definitely mix up enough epoxy. Well, better have too much than too little in this situation. Alright, for good measure, we'll get some right here on the inside of this, what I'm calling a bulkhead flange. I got epoxy on my fingers, so I better get that cleaned off here soon. Okay. Stick it on there. Need a towel. New shop rag to the rescue. Get this stuff off my fingers before it causes cancer. Well, it can stay on my fingers as long as it wants, but the second I enter into the country of California, I'm going to immediately get cancer. Probably four or five different types. So better to get it all cleaned off just in case I have to go to California. Not that I want to, but boy, it'd be nice if they cleaned up their act, because there's parts of California that are just downright beautiful. I've been there before, so I know. Okay, so let's take a look at what I got going on here. You can see there's a gap right here I need to fill up with epoxy so we don't get water inside the double wall of the cooler. And here's the inside. That's looking pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna let it set up 10 minutes. I'll be right back. Alright, we're back. Things are set up. Now it's time to seal the inside here. And I got it kind of set up here on my bench grinder and a roll of paper towels and all that nonsense. But we need to get some epoxy mixed up. And yeah, it's going to be quite a bit. That should be good enough. Let's get a look inside here. And I'm just going to liberally put a good layer all the way around. I didn't mean to put it there. Get off. Seal everything up. I'm making sure to put plenty extra in here. Because Because if anything's going to enter into the double wall of the cooler, it's going to enter in from there. Okay, well, that is curing up. I have the tubing that I'm going to use right here, but it's not in the shape I want to. The cooler has about 2 inches of room on the front side of my truck bed to be able to turn down and then curl back down to the drain, and I need to make this the right shape. And what I'm going to do is I got a heat gun right here, and I have a pan of water, and I'm going to warm it up and make my bends carefully, cooling it off if I need to, and make a custom drain tube. Starting to feel rubbery, so I'm going to start introducing a little bit of a bend to it. And one of the things you can do to keep from kinking is pull on it as you put that almost a 90 into it. You can push it back as well. Not quite there yet. Trying to keep it from kinking here. So right now I'm pushing it together as I soften it up. I got it. Time to cool it off. It's not perfect. You can see how it kind of flattened out a little bit there, but all it needs is air to be able to go through it, which means a little bit of water will go through it, and that's all I need. It's just going to be a slow dripper. Yep, that'll work. Now we just wait for that epoxy to dry, and we'll flip the cooler over and put epoxy on the other side, and we'll be done. Almost. I just gotta paint it tomorrow. And here's another thing. Look at that, it's still got a sticker on it. 5 days of ice. Keeps this ice for 5 days. Pretty cool. Anyway, what I'm doing is a lot cheaper than buying a Yeti. By a long shot. Alright, intermission for a couple seconds, and we'll come back, we'll put epoxy on the other side, and then we'll paint. Alright, we got the cooler flipped over. Everything's set up pretty good on the inside. Now it's time to get around here. There's a bit of a gap here, so I'm going to use this little paintbrush here to get it worked under there. Just like so. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go around just with this paintbrush and kind of get it worked into that gap. And then I'm going to let this epoxy set up about halfway to where it's a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to come in with the chopstick and I'm going to really work in a nice big layer. Okay, now I need to get this part screwed in there, so I'm going to put some epoxy on the threads, off camera, on camera, something like that. Go ahead and get this screwed in here. I think I need a pair of pliers, goodness. We got her in there. Use the paintbrush to get a little extra around there, just for extra leakage safety. Okay, that should do that. Now I'm going to let this set up for about 2 more minutes. When it's nice and thick, I'm going to put a nice thick layer around here, especially on this side where there's a gap. Be right back. Alright, it looks like it's set up sufficiently enough, but yet still fluid enough I can tuck some more epoxy under here without it flowing everywhere, even though it probably will. Gravity's a little bit of a disadvantage right now. Could have waited another 2 minutes, I think, but I think this is gonna work just fine. Last little bit around the back side here. Alright folks, I think we're pretty much good to go. Just gotta let it set up overnight, and in the morning, in about 8 hours, which for you guys is going to be about 2 seconds, we're going to go ahead and paint this entire cooler nice and silver to reflect the sunlight and hopefully make it so that the ice lasts a little bit longer in this hot Texas sun. So I'll see you guys in about 2 seconds.
All right, we got her all mounted up. I got my drain in here. I don't know if you can see it, but it goes all the way down to the little drain hole in the corner of my truck bed down there. So now it's just time to get her filled back up with water and ice.
Well, that pretty much completes the cooler modification. Hope you liked it. Hopefully that chrome paint I put on there reflects the sun a little bit more and makes this cooler that turns out is 9 years old last a little longer and kind of, you know, prevent me from having to spend 300 bucks on a Yeti. I think it'll work all right. Gotta throw a bag of ice in there every other day or sometimes every day on the really cold days, but at least I can stay hydrated and have some nice cold water to keep me cool. So thanks for watching. Best way to support this channel, share this video, hit the subscribe button, share the video, and then notification bell, like button, drop a comment if you got something to say. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Laters.